If the visionary is not really in sales, not really in marketing, not practicing, but is still involved in some of the decision-making process or at the meetings, and visionaries are idea makers, or going out and networking business, is that different than should that visionary pay themselves a salary as a CEO or as the owner versus just working off a profit model?
So it's interesting. There are thoughts about whether, and Gino Wickman has talked about whether a company needs a visionary or not. There's some schools of thought that companies don't need a visionary. I think an established, let's say, service-based business in an industry where there is no innovation, maybe they don't need a visionary. I do think almost always one of the visionary jobs is major relationships. I'm the visionary. Yeah, I also do sales, but I'm the visionary. I think I earned my paycheck.
What is a percentage of the business, though, that you feel, forget profits, that you feel that person should make as a percentage or as a whole of the business? Because it's different, for litigators, we have in our business, we have a chief of operations, we have an integrator, we have a firm administrator, we have a chief of marketing. So, percentage wise is the visionary, forget profit. If you were to put a percentage on it, or could you put a percentage on it, forgetting profit? So because I think what a lot of people do is they pay themselves a low base salary so that they can survive on, and that's the minimum they could survive on, but their thrive and growth as a business owner is based on their profits. But that's, sometimes that model doesn't work out. You don't end up getting paid enough. And then there's others that will take a larger salary, where they're paying taxes and everything on it, and make less profit perhaps, or potentially. So are there different models about how an owner should get compensated? Is that a dumb question, or?
No, it's not a dumb question. So the low salary, higher draws is a more tax efficient model, especially if you're an S Corp. Okay. What we say is, if that person wasn't there, who would we have to hire and what would we have to pay them to get that job done?
Isn't that hard, though, when you have a chief of operations, you have an integrator who in a sense is the CEO, perhaps. They remove roadblocks, but it's kind of a weird, that's using the traction model, but there's other models. You have your leadership in place, you have your sales and your marketing, and you have your operations, and you have your administrator, then you have the integrator that oversees all of that. So that could be like the CEO role.
Yeah.
So it's not what you pay the CEO, it's what you pay the visionary.
Right. So, Bill, are you asking what your salary should be?
I'm asking what a visionary's salary should be. I'm not saying
if you took the
amount.
If you took, so here's where the disconnect is. When we're talking about a salary, we're talking about an amount. We're not talking about a percentage. Right. So if we took the visionary out, if we took the owner visionary out and we put another body in that slot, how much would we have to pay that body?
Right. And that's why the question that I had for you is, you don't usually go, hey, I need a visionary, or do you go out and look for, hey, I need an idea generator or relationship builder?
I mean, if you went out and you hired a relationship builder, absolutely. How many times have attorneys been hired away because they've got a big book, right? Mm-hmm. They're a major rainmaker.
Right.
That's what they're hired for. They're hired because of who they know. and what they can make happen.
So I think that's a good point for our listeners. And so what we're trying to get out here is that when you start building your practice and you start hiring C-suite executives to help run your firm, and you've transitioned yourself out as a lawyer, because when you were practicing law, you may have paid yourself as a lawyer. And then when you stop practicing, you might have taken over the roles as CEO even, and you pay yourself a certain salary. You keep maybe give yourself increases as a lawyer and say, I want to make a little more because I'm the CEO of this thing. But once you start taking yourself out of the day-to-day stuff completely, do you give that salary back if you're still developing business and still doing stuff that is benefiting the firm? And so I think what Brooke is saying is that if you're a business developer and part of your job is creating ideas and relationship building, maybe akin to a business developer or stuff like that, and there's always someone in your firm that has that capacity, what would it take to pay someone like that? And so that you wouldn't necessarily reduce your salary, or if that position is worth less than your top litigator, perhaps you would, but in reality, you would still need to pay that person. So you would still be drawing down a salary, and that's how you'd have to look at it, not as a percentage of the firm, because that's where the profit lies. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing you?
Yeah, you get paid two ways. You get paid for the job you do, and you get paid for owning the firm. So you get paid for the job you do in a salary in a dollar amount, and you get paid for owning in profit, which is hopefully in a percentage.